All right, we're recording, and this is try two. Uh, this
Because
is
we're
time.
perfectionists.
So we're prepared. Oh, I gotta do the theme song. Time with Tom. Uh, yeah, thanks, Tom, for doing this. I am feeling after we both just had internet problems. I'm feeling like Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets. Yeah,
Just why are we like Statler and Waldorf?
because we're two old men who don't know how to
Oh,
work computers.
yeah.
Have you ever seen the Muppets like YouTube channel? I watch it every once or their Instagram. I watch every once in a while. I watch them on the Facebooks. They have Statler and Waldorf ones where they're like trying to like punch buttons on the keyboard, and I relate.
Yeah, we were
Um,
talking about Mitchell's versus the Machines, where the dad is like, ah.
yeah, yeah.
The yeah, I'm more a classic Sesame Street fan than I am a Muppets fan. But and
I
if you
really.
look,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
was just gonna say, like, I don't know how versed you are in early Sesame Street has some of the chaos that Muppet Show has. There's like I was showing this to somebody, I can't remember who, but like this my favorite skit of all is this mystery box that Kermit does with Cookie Monster. And Cookie doesn't want to play, and he's like, I'll give you a cookie if you play. He's like, oh, it's a moose, it's a it's just, it is hilarious, and it's also chaotic, and
That's
it's
fun.
just
Yeah, I used to love
brilliant
the.
writings.
Yeah, I used to love the on the street reporting with the aliens that would
Yeah.
always like. Yeah, they just went mip, 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 uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Those were right. That was the weird Muppet chaos. I was like, what is this about? Yeah, anyway. Um, all right, so Tom with Tom, we have our seven questions. Is there anything you want to talk about before we get into our seven questions?
uh no, well, we were talking a little bit your podcast, whatever week it was, because I don't know when this will air, but about going up and surprising your daughter and seeing her game was really great, because I give you a lot of shit about not jumping into the episode, but that was worth it. That was good. It was good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's always nice to have a victory. And it was like it's been a shit year. So it was nice, especially for her. It's just been it's been a slog and a climb. And so it was really nice to have a victory. And it's funny, we go back next week and we're gonna hang out.
Yeah,
We're going to
and
another one of our games, bringing her home for Thanksgiving.
uh, I have this kid who works for me, a high school kid who graduated this past year and went to college this fall, and he's transferring to you down in Massachusetts, down in Boston, but he's transferring to UNH because he just had a bad first semester,
Mm.
and for various reasons. But and I just thought, college was so awesome when I went to college. Like my first semester, it was just like magic, because I'd come from a small town, and
Mm.
nobody in my family went to college, and it was just like, you mean I can just go wherever I want, eat whatever I want, and I'm surrounded by people who, you know, I went to school with like the same 20 kids because it was very tracked.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't call it tracked, but because there was only like one honors course, because there was only 120 people in the class, then uh it dictated what your schedule throughout the day was. So basically I ended up going with the same people. And going to college with all those people my age was a great eye opener. And then a few years later, after college, I was living in hometown for a while, which has about 6,000 people in it, in Maine. And then I ended up in Ann Arbor, which has like 60,000 students. And it was like, it was so great
That's
going to a
amazing.
place where there are like literally six people my age, because Kennybunk in Maine is not a place to hang if you're a young person. It's a great place. It's a great place to raise a family, but
Yeah,
there's nothing fun to do, which is why we would always come to Portsmouth to do fun things, which is how I ended up here, because I knew it was a great place.
that's awesome.
So yeah, I felt bad that she had a really hard time getting there, because getting there seemed like a triumph, and then she showed up, and you're like, this
Oh
sucks.
man, she showed up and it was like another like 3 weeks of just disaster, and then you know, finding out that she might have to fight her way onto the basketball team, even though she's been recruited, was tough. And but she's come out, and you know, it's funny. She played in her first game tonight. We were watching it on YouTube, and they were getting stomped on. And Wendy and I are on the couch. We're like, "This is great. She might get in." It's like, she's only gonna go. She's the only freshman on the team. She's only gonna go in if the game doesn't matter. So we're like, "This is great." And sure enough, in the last minute and 30 seconds, they put her in the game, and we are freaking out. We are like, "She's in a college game."
So did she not play at all in the game that you went up to see?
No, she didn't play at all.
Oh,
Yeah. And we knew she would. I told her, I was like,
yeah.
I'd be shocked if you get into a game all season. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think you'd. I told her because everything's weird with COVID. Like, they have all these 50-year seniors hanging out because they all have an extra year of eligibility for because they lost a year of basketball to COVID. So
Mhm.
they all have they've only played 3 years, even though they could graduate. So they have all of these 50-year seniors on this team that usually has none, and they're pumped to be there. But it's like
Right.
this is funny. She's the only freshman, and it's so I told her, I was like, yeah, expect to never play unless it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
she got in for a minute and a half. She ran up and down the court 3 times. The ball never came near her. That's not true. She got a rebound and kicked it out, but that was it. And then she didn't. But Wendy and I were freaking out. We were like, she's in a college game. It's really funny. Um, our 9-year-old came up. He was like, "What's going on?" We're like, "Juliana's in the game." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "She plays basketball all the time. What's wrong with you, mom and dad?" Yeah.
You
Anyway.
you realize the next step is clearly surreptitiously injuring players.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just making sure we're
Yeah.
talking story here. So
Yeah. So, but I'm actually kind of hoping a couple of them fail classes. Um, because if they have failures, they can't play. So then she's guaranteed a spot. Yeah. No, we did talk when we went up. We talked to the coaches, and they really like her, which is also nice to hear because her last coaches weren't so nice. So it was great to see. Yeah, see her fit in. Anyway, that's not about writing. That's about my personal celebrations. Yeah. So let's talk about writing. What you working on?
I'm doing the dialogue dash. I'm doing it poorly. Um, it's um, it's weird. I had this thing this spring and summer where I thought I had diabetes, but I didn't, which was great.
I
It
didn't know
was
that.
it it was a reaction to I started taking a statin in January for cholesterol, and 6 months later, I get these crazy symptoms, which are excessive exhaustion and excessive thirst, which is basically diabetes, right?
Wow.
Uh, and so, and then I keep testing negative. We couldn't figure out what it was because, anyway, long and the short of it is I'm totally fine, which was nice. It took like 12 weeks to get the stuff out of my system. I mean,
Nice.
I literally would like work for 2 hours and have to lay down. I was so exhausted. And
Wow.
the only lingering sort of biological change from it is that I cannot get up in the morning like I used to. So
Huh.
last year I did nano, and I don't remember Ran and I were zooming together at like 5:30 a.m. every
I
day, and it
totally remember you doing that.
was
Yeah.
awesome. I cannot do it.
Hmm.
My alarm goes off, and I just turn it off.
That's
Um,
really funny.
so I'm getting like an hour in the morning because I'm getting up at like 6:45 or 7, and then I got to take the kids to school at 8. So weekdays I'm getting like 300 or 400 words in, and then weekends I'm getting like 6,000 words in. Um, which I'm totally not a binge writer like that, so I keep getting ahead of the story and then having to slow down. But anyway, I'm at 20,000 words, which is not bad, but I wanted to do 60 for the month, so I'm 10,000 words behind. Here we are at
Yeah.
15. Um, so yeah, but the story's fun. I'm doing things that I've never done before, which is cool. Every scene is like 4 times longer than my normal scene. It's just a different pacing. And then my problem is thinking plot wise, like, well, is it going to be exciting? Is it going to
Yeah.
be, I'm sort of worried that it's it's slow because it's not how I usually do it. But
Yeah, that's tough. That's yeah, I find my writing changes when I'm sprinting as well. It's a weird. Is it the sprinting you think, or is it the genre change for
no,
you?
it's not even a genre change. It's maybe it is. I didn't think it was a genre change. Maybe it is. No, but my other books are mediocre but entertaining
Hmm.
and very very quick.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
55,000 words. They're action 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 action. They're like 50 chapters,
yeah,
right? So they're like, you know, uh and this is very different, and I kind of want to lean into it and do more with character and more with other, other
yeah,
things. So we'll see how it goes.
yeah.
I like the story so far. I just want it to build to something large, and I'm not sure what that is yet.
That's cool. I love that.
Uh,
Um, I love those changes. I think that's great. I'm kind of at a place personally where I'm like, if it's not selling, I kind of have the freedom to do whatever the hell I want. So,
yeah, I think we talked about this before too. Or I kind of feel like I'm doing what I'm doing is a lot of practice,
yeah,
um, and which is not to degrade genre because I really enjoy it, and there are brilliant books written in genre,
yeah,
but I kind of want to take a whack at literary fiction at some point. So,
yeah, yeah. Go for the
um,
Pulitzer.
I was really, really happy with the story that I did for the dialogue con.
Oh, nice.
So,
I haven't read it yet. It
yeah,
is
I was
what
gonna
it,
say what you're gonna have back to me, right? Like at the end of
yeah, 15
the.
days. Yeah, Laura and I divided them in half. I have to edit six and Laura has to edit
Yeah,
six. Nobody knows what we're talking about. We
yeah,
had an
that's okay.
in-person retreat in Baltimore, and part of the retreat is we're publishing an anthology of everybody that came. And so you came, and I haven't even written my piece yet. I'm very bad at my own deadlines. Um,
So you haven't written your piece yet?
yeah, I started it. I didn't like it. I deleted it. Yeah, I need to start over.
Um, I drove to this thing from New Hampshire for 7.5 hours, so
Yeah.
I had a story pretty roughed out in my head on the drive. So it was great. By the end of the weekend, I had my first draft pretty much done. I brought it home. My wife read it, and was always a huge help. So I ironed out a lot of stuff after talking to her
Nice.
and sent it in. So
That's great.
uh,
Yeah, I'm pumped to read it. It's not necessary that I put something in the anthology. I was like, oh, this will be fun. I haven't done an anthology in a long time, so it would be a good. But and I haven't written a short story in probably like 3 or 4 years, so I thought it would be good practice. And I went to my when I used to write short stories, I used to go to the Grimm's Fairy Tales and use a random number generator and just pick one and then try to rewrite part of it. And they're great because they always came out like weird and funky and fun and kind of strange. And but I picked one and I like started writing it and I was like, this isn't fun. And then I picked another one and I started writing it and I was like, this one's too weird. And so yeah, I don't know. I have to get my crap together. I
yeah,
keep getting distracted by the dumb dumb. I keep getting distracted by the memoir I'm writing for a publisher.
who may or may not want it, right?
He wants it now. He's excited about it again. He yeah, and I don't know that he ever was not excited about it. I'm struggling to figure out um what is my personal I don't even know how to say it, self-doubt, issues, self-hatred. What is my personal what's my problem and what's actually happening sometimes in reality is tough for me to discern the difference between. Um it's only specifically when it comes to writing. In other areas of my life, I'm actually very good at reading people and understanding them, but when it comes to
Yeah.
writing, I have no idea what's happening. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I rewrote it. Um, this because I was supposed to give it to him November. Well, I was supposed to give it to him August 1st, and I kept pushing it back. But he was like, "Hey, give it to me in October." So I gave it to him, and then he was like, "Well, I'm not actually gonna have time to touch it until November 15th." So I was like, "Oh, well, I'll rewrite it again." So I took another pass at it, and it is much better after the pass. I'm actually happy about it, but it's one of those things, man. It's like it's a little mean. Um, it's the ending chapters are a lot mean, and uh it's very personal. I share a lot of like personal stuff in it.
Mhm.
And so I sent it to him and I was like, I don't know if I should actually publish this. And I gave it to the people that are in it. I was like, hey, y'all need to read this before it comes out, just so you're not surprised by what I say. And none of them have read it, including my wife.
Including your
So I'm like, you really have to read this. You are in it a lot.
yeah.
Some of the
Wow.
stories I tell are actually your stories, so you have
Right.
to read it. But yeah, but she hasn't read it yet.
So
We've been insanely busy, but yeah.
have you figured out yet that you can't do all this revision and do the dialogue dash and I mean lead the dialogue dash and then actually do NaNoWriMo, or are you you
You
trying to do
say can't. I say ha ha. My NaNoWriMo, I have about 20,000 words. Uh
wow.
yeah, I'm doing good. Um I've had a lot of my part of it is, I run editing clients each week. And during November they always all kind of disappear and then they come back in January.
Mhm.
So I don't have a lot of editing clients right now. I think I'm actually only working with two people. Usually I work with six a week. And so it's pretty calm right now, which is nice.
What's your nano project?
I'm trying to finish the season 2 of Nerds.
Mm.
Yeah, JP and I let it kind of fall to the wayside in August because we both life got crazy for both of us. Things got crazy for both of us. I think we're both actually I can't speak for him. I'm kind of getting tired of Vela just in general, and we don't really make any real money on it. So
It it's nowhere.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
nowhere on their site. They're totally uninterested in it. They're
It's a typical Amazon thing where they like launch this thing and they pay attention to it for a bit and then it goes away. It's kind of like Goodreads. It kind of lives in its own ecosystem. It has its own world. But yeah, so and I'm sure there's people still making good money on it. We're just not one of them. We did for the first, but we're again, it's Amazon. We're making money on the bonuses. We're not making money on the real
right.
reads. And when they stop the bonuses, and so when the bonuses stop, it's like, oh well, now we're making pennies. so so yeah, but the book is actually good. And season 2, which is why I'm working to finish it during Nano, or at least what JP's outlined for me, because it's much better than book 1. It's it's a lot better than book 1. So part of me is like, we need to finish it because it's really good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we actually kind of figured out what this thing is that we're writing, and it works. Part of it was we gave up on the like each episode needs to stand alone, and we're like, oh, we can just write this like we write story. But yeah,
Right.
but yeah, that's what I'm working on. That's I'm trying to think if that's everything. I did
Like
send
just
the memoir to the publisher this morning. I was like, here you go.
nice.
Yes.
Excellent.
So I should be done with it until January, hopefully.
Yeah, it's amazing how much TV does that though. Always think of Justified, which is one of my all-time favorites in terms of writing. But season one, it was like episode of the week for 4 or 5
Mhm.
episodes, and then they're like, "Oh, forget it. We're just telling one long story."
Yeah. Yeah. We did
And then
episode.
season two was which is
Oh, it's
genius.
amazing.
I don't
Yeah.
it's
It's
amazing, but it's a
amazing.
novel. I mean, it's
Yeah.
basically a novel.
It's great. Um, and then they put out that new season on Hulu that is hot garbage. Um,
I wasn't gonna watch it.
it's terrible.
Same reason my wife thinks I'm a jerk, but I don't want to see my favorite bands if I haven't bought and enjoyed an album of theirs in 10 years or more.
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, I'm with you.
And that's where all the money is. I'm a friend of mine's
Yeah.
is the marketing manager at a concert venue on the seacoast here, and it's all, you know, a Motley Crue and
Yeah.
bands from the 80s, and they
Yeah.
sell out. They all sell out. I'm like,
Yeah.
why would you want to
Springsteen's
go
still
see them?
touring, man.
Why would you want to go see it? I don't want to see Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah, I don't know.
although it was fascinating to see the entire cast of Deadwood come back, was pretty amazing. I don't know if you saw that.
I never watched
Uh,
Deadwood, so I didn't
what?
watch the return. Yeah.
I'd be interested in what you see because it has purposely stilted dialogue. um, which was based actually on how people spoke at the time, which was
Yeah.
like this formality that came from Victorian literature, which is all that they sort of knew, this sort of
Interesting.
formal language, and unbelievable vile swearing, which was a way of keeping people at arm's length without getting into fights.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, oh my god, I mean, you must have seen clips of it or
I don't
some.
think
I
I
can
have. I don't.
imagine
I couldn't even tell you who the actors are. I have no idea
it's
who's in it.
well, it's what's his name from Justified,
Oh, okay.
uh, and yeah, it's an amazing ensemble cast. You should watch. You should
Yeah,
watch a little
I'll
bit of it.
check it
It's
out.
really worth it.
I don't know where
Uh,
I could find it though. That's the problem is you got to find things
it was an
nowadays.
HBO show, so it's probably on HBO. But I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
You've heard
There's
my
a
theory on this, right?
no.
Like everything's on different streaming services now, so only a matter of time before a new service comes out that lets you bundle all these streaming services,
Yeah,
which will pretty much be cable television.
yeah, yeah. You have told me that theory before.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which blows my mind.
It's
It's
just
totally
coming
going to
back
happen.
around.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
just
coming
coming
back
back
around.
around
Yeah,
with just
here it
without the
comes.
cable. But it'll be like, okay, I'm going to pay this much a month and I'll get HBO and Hulu and Disney all rolled in and
Yeah, it
whatever.
is funny. There's two kind of like Netflix kind of gets everything if you just wait long enough,
Mm-hmm.
except for HBO and Apple TV. They hold out.
Yeah.
But even Disney, like you can, even Disney Plus is like, yeah, Loki will be on there in a couple of years. You just got to wait for it. But yeah, it's just, yeah, Apple TV though and HBO are like the two blind spots I have.
Yeah.
I never see anything from them. Um,
All
okay,
right.
but
That's question one. Good job.
yeah, woo, we did it. Best story you've consumed lately.
Uh, I've got two for two totally different reasons. One was the movie of Dune, the recent one, the
Yeah, yeah,
Denis
yeah.
Villeneuve,
The part
and
one. I
the
refuse to
part
watch
one.
movies that stop in the middle.
It does. But what was interesting to me, one, it was a it looked so much like Ahsoka, or Ahsoka looked like it
Hmm.
because it predated it, but it has a very Star Wars feel in the design, in the best sense, like the best part of Star Wars design. But we've talked about this a little bit before, but I really been thinking a lot about the idiomatic nature of genre, and what's fascinating here is that it's such a movie.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's based on a book,
Yeah. Oh,
um,
yeah.
which
Have
I
you?
have not read.
Oh, I've read it.
And so, but what's interesting is, what's interesting is it's it's incredibly sparse, and it's a hallmark of this director. He did Blade Runner, the
Mm,
updated Blade Runner, and he did Arrival. I don't know if you saw Arrival,
I
but
did.
like
I didn't see Arrival.
vast, oh, it's fascinating, but vast quiet spaces and
Mm,
huge landscapes, and um this sort of emptiness, and it's just the dialogue is just distilled down to only what's necessary.
mm,
And some people might say like that's because everybody knows the book, so they don't have to explain everything, but I didn't know the book, and I didn't need you didn't I didn't need anything explained. it it's hard to explain, but it was really just the essence of this conflict and these characters in this space, and I really enjoyed it. um and it just made me think how movie-ish it was. If it was a TV
that's
show, there would have been
interesting.
so much explaining.
Yeah,
And
it's
since
so
the book
different.
is 10,000 pages, I figured there must be an awful lot of explaining in the
You
book.
know, the book reminds me of Ivanhoe or like the Three Musketeers, where you spend like 10 pages learning about the curtains in the castle. It's just that kind of like very heavy describe. I read it. It's been a long time since I read it. I read it back shortly after college, just as like I was reading things that I was like, I'm going to be able to say that I read this. Like Crime and Punishment. You know, it was just like I felt my literacy was lacking. So I was like, I'm gonna go growing up in a ghetto school in New Orleans. I was like, where our advanced placement English class only read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and um uh The Once and Future King. We read two books in a year. And at the end of our class,
That's
I
a
was
lot
like,
of analysis.
it was not, I promise.
Uh,
At the end of the class, I was like, hey, I'm going to take the AP test. And my teacher was like, oh, sweetie, you're not taking the AP test. So anyway, I came out of college thinking like, man, my literacy is very much lacking. So I read Dune, and it was tough. It wasn't. It's not my favorite, but it's there's people that love it. But I was, it's kind of like the Dark Castle series by Stephen King. It's another one. I read it. I was like, I don't. What is happening? I don't. Dark Tower,
yeah,
not
Dark Tower.
Dark Castle. Dark
Dune
Tower.
is um Dune actually has quite a bit. I had read how much Star Wars was stolen from Dune, and I can totally see it. But even more so, I can totally see how the prequels were stolen from Dune because
Hmm.
the prequels are all politics, which is
Yeah,
part
yeah,
of why people hate them because they're not action adventure for kids
yeah,
movies.
yeah.
Um, and Dune is all about motives, like people are being pushed against each other in conflict that they don't because somebody else is
Yeah,
pulling the strings.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but anyway, I enjoyed that a lot because it was so movie-ish. It was just incredibly movie-ish. I was watching it, I was
Nice.
thinking like, this is such a movie, and it made me sad that I was doing it in my living room and not in some huge
Yeah, yeah.
theater. And then the other one was we just finished episode series one of Dairy Girls, which is only about 7 episodes, and the voices are phenomenal. The
Yeah,
big
they're
castings
fantastic.
are phenomenal, but at the heart of it, they're all terrible friends who just constant they constantly undercut each other, and then the family that's sort of at the center of it constantly undercut each other, and they all can't stand each other. And I get I get tired of that quickly.
Hmm.
And so by episode 7, I was like, ugh. And then at the very end of the season, there are these just huge emotional payoffs that all
Hmm.
happen in like 10 seconds. I don't know. You said you've watched it? Yes or
I've
no?
watched 2 episodes.
Yeah. So, as you know, the girls don't stand up for each other at all.
No, they're terrible friends.
And then at the end of the episode, they do, at the end of the first season, they do.
Oh, okay.
And then the grandfather who hates his son in law and just like craps all over him every
Hmm.
episode
Yeah.
at the very end of the season, all he does is they're all watching the TV because something tragic has happened. And so the character, the adults are all standing looking the same direction. And he just reaches out and he puts his hand on the son in law's shoulder. And it's just like the emotional payoff is
Oh,
huge because of
that's
6
great.
episodes of him just crapping all over him.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was impressive
That's awesome.
because they took it just to the point where I was about to
You're
check
about to be
out.
done. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm more sensitive to that than some people. I think like I adore Arrested Development, but only the first season because after that, Michael was just as bad as the rest of them. And in season one, like you've got Michael to be sort of the person that you
I
can
have to have a
see the
vehicle I
things
can
through.
root for.
Yeah.
I have to have somebody I can root for. And
And
I
that's
can't.
him. And he's that in season one. But after
Yeah.
that, he's just terrible.
After that, he's just as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's Dairy Girls reminded me to be very true of a small town of like, these are the people we're stuck with.
Yeah.
Like we don't, these are the people we chose. These are the people that are here. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife was like, why are they even friends? And I was like, they grew up next door to each
Yeah.
other.
Who else is
That's
going
yeah.
to be friends
I totally had that. So those are my two for good things.
Nice.
You?
I have nothing.
Nothing
I have nothing. I've been
because
in
you're
a
busy writing.
drought for about a month. I have been reading a lot of books of people that I'm interviewing, specifically for my other podcast, and they're fine books. I do not enjoy reading nonfiction anymore.
Mm.
So it's especially theological nonfiction. It is not fun for me. Um, and I don't, but I've had to um, for this other podcast I do. So but it's fine. The conversations post are great, and talking to the people is amazing. And I refuse to come to. They're always surprised that I read their books. But I refuse to
Right.
go to an interview and not read somebody's
Yeah.
book. I don't. I hate that. I hate when somebody shows up to an interview and they haven't read a book. So I always read the book. And so, but I've just been kind of drowned in that. I've been drowned in. I've started several books to be like, oh, this is going to be fun, and it's not fun. So it's been probably, there's nothing in recent memory that I can be like, man, I really enjoyed that. I
Yeah,
enjoyed,
that's thing.
huh?
You notice both of mine were film or TV because like I'm editing people's books and I'm doing nano. Like
Yeah,
there's no
yeah,
reading time, which sucks. But
yeah. I did start. Well, another problem is I wanted to study dialogue and sex scenes, so I've been reading a lot of genre romance, and it's fine. I just don't. It's just not what I enjoy to read. So for me, it's work. It's like, oh, I'm reading. Like I'm on my fourth genre romance book this month, and I'm just like, I see the tropes. You don't have to read a lot of them.
that,
But yeah, but and I get it. Like I'm not dissing genre romance. It's just not. I like reading literary fiction. So for me, it's like, okay, let's go. I listen to them now on two speed on audiobook with the book in
mhm,
front of me. So I can because I have to see how things are structured on the page when I'm reading it for work. I can't just listen to it. I have to
right.
see what they're doing with paragraph spacing and all that kind of stuff. But I do listen to them at two speed with the book in front of me because I move twice as fast.
Well, it seems to me that it's another case where I mean, romance is a huge genre, so I'm sure I'm totally wrong on this, but like it's so much easier on film to show an intimate scene.
Perspective
Like
is a problem, and um, it's interesting. I'm really learning why tropes are tropes because I think the way tropes get formed is somebody figures out how to do it on the page, and then everybody does it, and that's how you get a trope. And so, kind of figuring out like what's structurally happening here that makes this good, and it is about slowing it. I mean, it's about two things. Something I'm seeing that I was very surprised in is that often sex scenes, even in like the couple more erotic books I've read, are character growth payoffs. Um, because it is a moment of giving in to desire and or allowing yourself to be completely vulnerable. So
mhm.
it revolves a massive amount around a character growth arc, where sex scenes happen, the style of the sex scene, the the is it an emotional payoff or is it something that the character is doing um that is kind of a experiment of a different personality type. Like there's a lot of I'm learning like, oh, these are used for different reasons in these tropes. And
When they work.
when they work and when they and the way that you use them has to do with the character growth and what you want the character growth to be doing right now, like what that character is doing in the moment. So it is very interesting. The best ones also, the sex is a expression, a modulation of the personality, but it is the personality. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
it is dialogue. It is like two people talking. And so it's been an interesting study, but I need to take a month off and do something else. So I'm starting to get a little blurry eyed. Starting to get a little like, what is going on? Um, but yeah, anyway, that's what I've been doing. What's something you read that was broken? Because I got a bunch.
Again, I'm not reading anything these days. Although I mean, I am reading some
Or story.
nonfiction.
Yeah,
The
any story.
nonfiction, yeah, the nonfiction I'm reading is a lot of stuff about trauma, which again I need to take a break
Oh,
from.
yeah, seriously.
But not memoir, but like
Yeah,
psychology of
yeah. Oh,
which is fascinating. My wife has this new job that has to do with teens and facing the fact that at least in our state, there's almost no trauma informed governmental
mm,
services that it's called DCYF here,
yeah, yeah.
Department of Children and Youths, whatever.
Mm.
Um, you know, why can't that kid behave? Like
Yeah.
we can't help them if they keep getting into trouble. And
Yeah.
you have to read like one or two of these books, like Body Keeps the Score, Deepest Well, where
Yep.
you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they can't help
Yeah.
it.
They physically
And
can't.
so, right. So
They emotionally can't do what you're asking them to do.
so it means you're failing at your job, not that
Yeah.
they're failing at being
Yeah.
a teenager. And there's no great answers. So that's depressing. So we went to see them. We went to see them. We'll just move on.
You just blew right through it.
Yeah.
Like, that's so depressing. Anyway. Yeah.
Yes. For something else, that's deeply important to our society, we went to see the Marvels.
Oh,
Um,
how was it? I really want to go see it.
so uh, it was delightful.
Yay.
But it was delightful because of the characters.
Nice.
It The woman who plays Kamala Khan is just, I don't know if you watched the TV
I
show, but
did. I love the TV show.
she's just phenomenal. She's
Yeah.
just glows in every scene.
Hmm.
Um, but my beef with it and why I think it was broken is that I think Marvel is a bit broken. The science was so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. And I mean, it always is in the movies, but in this movie particularly, I think you have all of these incel bros lined up to shit all over you. I mean, they just can't wait.
Yeah.
They just can't wait.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're giving them fuel. I mean, some of the stuff was so bad. Like she's flying in space and she's gasps in surprise. It's like, no air out there, man. Um, she
Oh,
gets in
that's
a fight with
hysterical.
a very powerful person and gets some tears in her uniform, which has to be built to withstand the power that she gives off, or she'd blow her clothes off every time you give power. So you think, wow, that person must have been super powerful to damage her suit. But then later she's like flying through a sun and
Yeah.
the suit's fine. I
It's
mean,
fine.
it's just full of Marvel's always full of that, but it's super full of it. And I just thought, ah, like either they think that it's going to be so charming that nobody cares, or they're just they don't care as much anymore.
Yeah, I think they're trying to. And my take is that they've never known what to do with Captain Marvel. They
Yeah,
don't.
I mean,
She's
she's
overpowered.
overpowered. Yeah,
Yeah, they don't know what
absolutely.
to do with her.
Um,
And they partnered her with Kamala Khan because they were like, oh, that went really well.
mhm,
And so now they're like, you know,
yeah. Although the writing of Miss Marvel was also kind of lame. It's just
yeah,
the character was so good
the
that
actor was great.
yeah.
I did watch something great. I lied. I
Okay.
watched Loki season 2 with my kids.
Oh,
And
good. I only watched like the first couple episodes of season one. It just had Marvel overload. It's just like, sorry, that's too much Marvel. And
it
now we've
is,
gotten rid of Disney Plus, so I'll
yeah,
never see it.
it is the best Marvel thing I think I've ever seen. And I mean that. Season 2 specifically is it was the best emotional payoff and the best character growth arc I think I've ever seen them do.
Great.
I was impressed. Um, it was great. I
I
was
would say
I don't know how to leave that out. That was great.
yeah,
Yeah.
my favorite is probably Civil War because of character
Yeah.
growth and payoff or lack of payoff. Or I mean,
Yeah.
it's got way more going on than a Marvel movie
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
any right to have going on in it.
Yeah.
Uh,
What shocked me about Loki season 2 is I hate time travel. I hate time travel.
oh, I love time travel,
They
but
do
yeah,
it
it's always a
so
problem.
well. And then they seed up so much that I didn't catch. And 9 times out of 10, I catch it. If
Mhm.
they're like dropping a line, I'm like, okay, this is coming back. But they seeded stuff up in season 1 that doesn't pay off until the end of season 2. And you're like, oh,
That's great.
like it's impressive.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was impressive. Um,
Which is so hard. We were talking in those office hours the other day about how like you can't just have another storyline going
yeah,
because you want to pay it off later. You
yeah,
because the reader or the watcher is just like either they're spending the whole time trying to figure out what the setup is,
yeah,
or they're just bored and they walk away. But so it's really hard to do.
yeah. yeah, it was impressive. And they weaved all of this. They had like 4 or 5 stories going, like 4 or 5 character arcs, and they
Mhm.
weaved them together perfectly. And you're
Great.
just like, oh, this is perfect storytelling. I was really surprised because the last several Marvel things I've done, it's like you're saying, like, oh, this is fun, but it's not amazing. It's just
Yeah.
fun. It's just
I mean,
super fun.
they always have a good sort of main character
Yeah.
emotional moral conflict. I mean, that's kind of what I like about them. But
Yeah.
um the oh, here's a great craft tip from J.K. Rowling, which I've never talked to her about it, so I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm not sure she's doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
But one of the amazing things when you read her later books is how everybody comes back, like
Yeah.
everything. And the first time, and I ended up reading them so many times because the next book would be coming out and it would take 3 years. And I'd be like, I totally forgot what happened after reread them. And, I had a kid who was prime Harry Potter at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but what you then realize that she's doing, which is such an easy trick, is each time she needs a new character, instead of creating a new character, she thinks, who from the past 4 books
Mm,
could do this? And it's seamless and it works and it makes
yeah.
you think, oh my gosh, she's genius that she set that up that way. But
Yeah.
if you look a little bit closer at it, you realize that all she's really doing is repurposing
Yeah. Especially at the
characters in
end
a
books
really
where she starts bringing back
unique
all
way.
these characters. Yeah.
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 Um,
Yeah. My broken story is Gone Girl. I did redive into Gillian Flynn's novel, and I was sad about it. The writing is perfectly fine, but it is a story in which I hate everyone.
yeah. It sold so many copies too.
It sold so many copies, and I don't. When I first came out, I read it and I didn't understand it. I was like, all of these people are terrible, especially once you figure out the twist. You're like, oh man,
Mhm.
everybody's terrible. And then like as you're reading, you're like, this is all terrible. All of these people are horrible. And I don't understand the attraction. But yeah. Anyway, that's my broken story. I need one vehicle, one protagonist I can at least empathize with. I don't need to fight for them. I don't need them to win. It could be a tragedy. I'm fine with that. I just need somebody I care about.
Yeah. What's interesting is I didn't need that when I was 25.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely didn't. I mean,
Do you think it's an old man thing?
I think it's maybe a family thing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't overly examined it, but uh, yeah, I mean, um, I think in some ways young people are more cynical than older people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you think everybody's full of shit, then you're not surprised when all the characters
Yeah.
are terrible,
That's true.
right?
You kind of expect it.
Uh,
Yeah. And I do find what I read, like I used to be able to read a bunch of Chuck Palahniuk. And I pulled one of his books off the shelf recently and started looking at it. I was like, I can't do this. It's too dark. I can't do it. But yeah. Anyway. Did you have a broken story?
just that part of the Marvels that
Oh, that
was,
part of the
yeah.
Marvels. Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would recommend go seeing it just to fight the incels. I always thought that this was like an exaggeration, but
No.
if you go on like Screen Rant or any one of these sites and just start reading the comments and it's fucking woke Disney,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the number of times woke Disney is said in these comments is just, and like
Yeah. And I never understand.
I
I'm like, just don't watch it. What are you
just
doing?
but it's worse than that. It's like
Yeah.
this equating of um this equating of like a desire to include those who've been overlooked as some sort of weakness just
Yeah.
infuriates me.
Yeah.
Just infuriates me.
Yeah.
But
It's the worst. Yeah.
and it's so clear and it's so it's so blatant and it's so hypocritical in the whole, not to get into to politics, but we've seen it with people wanting to ban books and stuff, and just uh, you know, it's like every other part of their political philosophy is I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, don't tread
Um,
on me, bro.
right.
Yeah,
Except, don't
yeah,
show me something that might make me gay.
yeah.
Uh, because I
That's
can't
how
handle that.
that's how banned books work, by the way.
Yeah.
You read one, you're
Okay.
turned gay. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
questions or
What's next?
challenges you've had as an editor recently?
Uh, Not challenge. I mean, let's not be negative here, Jeff. Let's. I've been
Challenges are
thinking.
good.
Yeah,
That's how I
challenges is good.
learn.
Not a challenge, but I've been really. What's funny is I can see myself walking on State Street and listening to a podcast. I don't even remember what it was. It was very, very early in my stepping into self-publishing,
Hmm.
and it was somebody talking about GMC, which is goal motive conflict. And I sort of put it in the back of my mind. I forgot about it.
I don't know what that
And
is.
yeah, it's going to make perfect sense when you hear me
Okay.
explain it,
Okay.
because it um I've been feeling like there's something missing in the three-story method. Um, and I think what it is for scenes to come alive, everybody's got to be taking part in the three-story method, and we
Mm,
tend to forget that. And what GMC is when you sit down to write a scene, or when you're editing a scene, you look at each character and you just jot down what is their goal in the scene,
mm,
what are they, what's their motivation, what's their conflict. So in other words, what does the character want, why
mhm.
do they want it, and what's keeping them from getting it. And you do that with everyone, and it makes your hazard character, it super helps you write hazard characters,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're thinking about what the vehicle character is trying to do, and
Hmm.
the guy who's guarding the door is just guarding the door, and he's
Yeah.
going to be like, hey, you can't go in there. But if you think about all the characters, you think, okay, what's the guard's goal? The guard's goal is to go to lunch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
To not be
what's
hassled by
right,
you.
or the guard's goal is to not have any trouble.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's, you know sick, and he's going to throw up if he runs, or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
it is. But
Yeah.
it makes it very clear who's an anchor and who's an engine.
Yeah.
And it just brightens everything up, and it's
Yeah.
simple more than anything else. It is simple, simple, simple.
Yeah.
So all those things where you're like, okay, it's three-story method, but I don't know what the conflict is in the scene, or I can't really figure it out, or whatever. And all you have to do is say, I mean, most scenes don't have more than three, four, or five characters. It doesn't take more
Yeah.
than 10 minutes to do. But it means every interaction, when you're not sure what somebody would say, you'd be like, okay, well, what do they want?
Yeah.
It also helps with those. I think a technique that a lot of people miss is that about 30% of what we say has nothing to do with the actual conversation.
Hmm.
Um, and when you, I don't think people notice when you leave it out, but when you add that back in, it makes conversations feel really real, where two people are having a conversation about, you know, how are we going to break into this vault? And the third person is having a conversation about how much they got robbed, having how much of their car cost to get fixed. Right.
Yeah.
Uh, because their motivation for being there is totally different than everybody else is there.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
has a totally different motivation for being in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
scene. And it's just a simple thing, but it's really brightened up,
Yeah.
and
I
it
love how it
actually
gives everybody
made
agency.
scenes.
Yeah.
It makes scenes more fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
easier
very
to have
cool.
comedy. It's easier to move things forward. It's just,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I had heard that term ages ago, uh, and it made perfect sense at the time. Of course, I didn't write it down or whatever, and I had forgotten all about it. And
Yeah.
I can't remember where I came back across it, but I was like, that's what's missing in three-story method, is including everybody.
Every character. That's interesting. Yeah. I think mine is, I'm really, I'm having an recently a tough time separating when I need to edit somebody and when I need to accept that what I'm reading is part of their voice. And it's a weird thing. And it's specifically happening with a couple writers. um, who break all the grammar rules on purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah. One of them I'm not even editing. I'm just reading. And I'm like, I read it and I'm like, man, if you were to give this to me to edit, I don't know that I'd know what to do with it. I'd probably just give it back and be like, no.
It's funny. I have something to show you. Hang on just a second.
Okay. Tom has disappeared. He's returning with it for those listening on the podcast, narrating Tom's actions.
So I actually had this uh exact same incident with a client where we haggled over a few ways of doing things, and then after a while I was like, you know what, that's the way he wants to do it. That's It's consistency is the important thing, right?
Yeah,
As long as it's consistent.
100%. Yeah.
And so and no one's going to read it anyway, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean,
it
yeah.
comes back to my my overwhelming philosophy of like, write the book you want to write.
Yeah.
And if you want quotation marks and italics, fine.
Do you think?
if you
Yeah.
want if you want extra commas because you want to give the sense of halting speech,
Right.
I get what
Yeah.
you're doing,
Have a
right?
good
Like, I'm
time.
sure you can
Yeah.
say you understand why they're doing it,
Yeah.
whatever.
It happens a lot
And
with plot for me. People are like, this is what I want to happen in the plot. And then they're like, is that right? I'm like, there isn't any right or
is that
wrong.
right?
Just do whatever you want.
Although, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel more strongly about that than I feel about grammar, because there's a lot of grammar rules that are stupid.
Yes.
Like the
100%.
end quotation goes outside the punctuation
Yeah.
no matter what. And
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, whatever. But so, we finished the guy's book this summer. He gives it to his neighbor who asked to read it, who used to edit for Faber.
Oh.
And he's
Oh.
like, I have a few corrections that I would like to make.
Oh my gosh. For those listening, Tom has held up what looks like a giant yellow, like sticky
it,
notes.
the book looks like it's made out of sticky
Woo.
notes because there is one or two for every one or two
Oh my
pages.
gosh.
And they're
Oh,
not wrong. They're not wrong, but
wow.
and some of them are dead right. Some of them are like, "Ooh, I missed that."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because you know what? She's a professional proofreader.
yeah.
I'm doing less and less proofreading. I'm trying to do none because I suck at it.
Oh, I'm terrible at
It
proofreading.
it just
Yeah,
takes a level of OCD that I don't
yeah,
have,
I don't
and
have it.
so I'm sub hiring that out to some people that I trust, which is good because that
Hire her.
yeah, I know. Isn't it? I mean, but a lot of it is like, there shouldn't be a comma there. It's like, you know what? He wanted a comma
Yeah,
there.
why do
It's
you care? Yeah,
fine.
so
Who
this is why I'm
cares?
a bad proofreader. So I'm like,
Yeah,
there are no
exactly.
rules. You can do whatever you want.
The yeah, or like street should be spelled out and shouldn't be st period.
Oh,
Well,
come
okay,
on.
sure.
Yeah, whatever.
Uh, but yeah, so this doesn't answer your question, but boy, does it show
Whew,
that. Look at that.
that's intense. That's
It's just,
intense.
um,
Oh
yeah.
man.
So anyway, yeah, just remember my mantra. Nobody's gonna read this.
Yeah.
Help the person make the book that they want to make, which sometimes might be saying your grammar sucks. Because if the book you want to make is a book that people take seriously, then the grammar can't be horrible. I
Yeah.
mean, it's got to have a level of professionalism. But
Well, like I
if
find
you want
myself.
to use language to, if you want to use punctuation to show like the rhythms and stuff of people talking, then go for it.
Yeah, I find myself saying the phrase to people that I edit sometimes. That's not how that works. Like they'll be like talking about something in the
Mhm.
book. I'll be like, that's not in the real world. That's not how that works. As long as you know, like I
Right.
don't like that's not how unhoused populations work. It's not how they work. As long as you know, you can do whatever you want in the book.
Mhm.
As long as you know, that's not how they work. So yeah, it's just a lot of. I find myself doing a lot of that too. It's not how they work. Yeah. Okay. Issues or problems you're pondering?
Uh, Same ones. I mean, this was my question 7 for you was how do you do time management, man? Because this month has been the closest for me to a Jeff Elkins kind of month where I'm working more than ever at my job.
Hmm.
Everybody's sick. I'm supposed to be editing at home so that because I can't do it at work and I'm trying to write 60,000 words and I'm not succeeding.
Yeah. I mean, the
Just
truth
not.
is, I only sleep 5 to 6 hours a night.
Mhm.
I don't do things that a lot of people do. Like I don't play video games. I don't watch shows or TV that isn't also multitasking. Like I have no fun. Um and I'm very obsessive with my task list. So I make a task list every morning. I carry over the task from the day before. I then take like 5 minutes to like give them an alphabetical rank, A, B, C, or D, and then each of those get a numerical weighting, one, two, three, or four, and then I do them in that order, and I don't screw around.
See, that works for me until I open my email
Yeah,
and I have the person who's like, hey, you said you were going to do this, but it didn't happen. Or, hey, this suddenly came up and I need it by tomorrow. And
yeah,
then,
goes on the list.
someone has to go to the doctor because they've got strep throat
Now the kids get me all
or,
the time. The
yeah.
kids throw me off all the time. Like yesterday, my oldest son was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, basketball transfer tomorrow, and I need a physical." And I'm like, "All right, well, I just lost 2 hours of my life."
But it's not just that. It's like, do you want to play a game? Like, I'm
yeah,
not going to say no to that.
no, I don't say no to that either. Yeah,
Right. So,
and there is that, like, but that's how people are always like, how do you do so much? And I'm like, well, I'm obsessive compulsive with
mhm.
my tasking and what I get done. And like I keep a zero inbox. I try to. So it's fallen apart some this year just because we've had so much like family trauma, but I try to keep a zero inbox. And like you're saying, like if I get an email that's like, hey, do you want, like, you need to respond to this thing? I don't answer it. It goes on the task list.
Yeah.
And then like I
I'm,
come
I'm
back.
trying to, I'm trying to move to a zero inbox because what I often have is uh, like a 2 or 3 day cycle where I
Mm,
know if I open the email, I won't get my list done.
yeah,
So I just don't open the email.
yeah,
And then I open it and I makes another
yeah.
huge list. But and people are
Yeah.
usually annoyed. So
Yeah. Second thing I do
um
every day. First thing I do is carry my list over from the day before.
mhm,
Like what I didn't finish gets put on today's list. And the next thing I do is I clear my email. Yeah. I also have the privilege of having a job that lets me do that kind of crap. Like a lot of people have to like show up at Target and like,
yeah,
I work in my basement at a desk at a digital job
yeah,
that gives me the freedom to like, hey, the first thing I'm going to do is clear my email because it actually works in their benefit. They like that
right,
I don't miss emails from clients and I don't.
right. But when I show up at work,
Yeah,
there's suddenly 20 more things on my
yeah, I don't have, and
list.
yeah, and I don't have that. I have the privilege of having a job, at least for the last 8 years, that is create. It's very mentally taxing and difficult. Like we do nonlinear storytelling, which is
Hmm.
very complex. It's like a
Right.
three-dimensional crossword puzzle, but it is. I do have the freedom of my day, so that's one of the ways that I organize things. Is that like I don't necessarily have to clock in. So if I'm working on something and I'm like from 5 to 7, I'm working on it before I make the kids breakfast and like make lunches and get everybody off to school. If like 5 to 7, I'm not done by 7, I can usually like say like, okay, well, I'm going to work on this for another 30 minutes before I clock into work. And my job's fine with that. Like as long as I put in 8 hours a day,
Mhm.
they're cool with when those hours are. So that helps. I have that privilege that helps me a lot.
Yeah, and I'm sure a professional would tell me that I should be zeroing things out so that if I don't want a job where I'm doing 18 different things, I should get a different job, which I'm trying to do, but I'm not succeeding. It's been like
This
a
is a
year.
cycle for you. Yeah.
Uh, it is. It's um because part of the problem, I mean, the more things you have to do, the easier it is to just do the parts of it you enjoy,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I would very much like to boil down to a job where I'm doing developmental editing 6 hours a day and then writing for 2 hours a day, which would be great.
Yeah.
Um, and is in the foreseeable future. It's just like this tunnel that keeps receding. And I'm sure, again, if I were to talk to a professional, they would tell me to do some things that I would have a hard time emotionally doing.
Yeah.
It took me all year to wait for staff to quit rather than fire them because who wants to fire people? I don't want to
Oh,
fire
it
anyone.
sucks. Yeah.
Anyone who hasn't done anything wrong. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like they haven't even done anything wrong, but
Yeah.
it's just not working out the way I need it to. So
When I worked in the nonprofit world, there was the phrase went around no, slow to hire, quick to fire. And it's the most inhumane policy ever. Yeah.
the or as I've heard it better phrased, better a hole than an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah. The issue I'm working on is we built this big workbook for the Dialogue Dash, which is great. I'm happy with it, but it assumes there's a single, very traditional vehicle character at the center of your story. And I think, there's 80 people doing the Dash, and like 60 of them were like, I have 4 vehicle characters, and none of the two of them are only show up twice. And I was like, oh, damn it, we got to redo this section of the workbook. So I've been working like spare thought. I have a spare thought board over here that's like my whiteboard of like I have 30 seconds and I just had a thought and I need to make sure I hold on to it. So I write it on my whiteboard over here. But and I just looked at it, which is always a bad idea. And so don't look at it. I've been really working on like how does the different formations of vehicles characters impact your story? And I've got 5 right now. I've got your traditional, like this character's going through a growth arc, and the story kind of centers around them. I've got 2 vehicle stories, which I'm starting to call chain stories because you have like moments apart, moments together, moments apart,
Mhm.
moments together. Braided vehicles where you've got more than 2 vehicles, and I'm learning that they tend to revolve around single events. So you'll have like all 3 stories, and they all have like something happens that brings them all together, and then you get all 3 stories, and then something happens that brings them all together. So it looks like this kind of braid. Um, and then the chorus vehicle is interesting. I was watching a David Fincher movie, The Social Network, and I realized that they have 3 characters and they're operating as one character. Um, they have the twins and their buddy who are suing um Zuckerberg. They're like 3 characters, but they have one growth arc, and they all operate as a single functioning character, even though sometimes you have scenes with just one of them. So that was fascinating. So I'm like, oh, that's really kind of a chorus vehicle. And then the last one I'm starting to play with is what I'm kind of calling a Messiah vehicle, which is a vehicle that doesn't change and is held up as perfect in the story.
Are they a
I
vehicle then?
They are, because it's in their perspective.
Uh,
I find them a lot in the old Christian fiction I used to read. There's typically the point of the story is that this character is 100% right. He represents a worldview, and he's walking around. Everybody's being changed by that worldview.
mhm.
Yeah. And one of the dialoguers asked today, is Ted Lasso one of those? And I'm curious. I haven't seen it.
Jesus, Jeff. Um,
I don't have Apple TV, and they don't sell to Netflix.
the literally, you could get the 6-day trial and watch the whole damn thing.
I
It's
might.
not that long.
I need a chunk of
Um,
time though. I might do that in December.
he no, because he
Okay.
grows and
He has a
changes.
growth arc. Okay.
Yeah, he's in the first part of the arc, he is Mr. Chipper Optimist, and he changes people's lives because of it. But one of the reasons he's Mr. Chipper Optimist is because he doesn't want to look inside.
Ah, okay. So he does have a growth arc.
Right. And so he has to face himself and grow, and that actually diminishes his ability to help others. But by then, the people he's helped are sort of helping
Yeah.
each other. It's a really nice show.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's
I'm
great.
gonna watch it. I'm excited about watching it.
The dialogue is unrealistic.
Yeah.
Like people have long speeches that they wouldn't
Yeah, yeah. Nobody would
normally
ever say
have
that.
or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's
Especially
fantastic.
athletes. There's that.
Um, I used the workbook for the first part of the dash, and for me, it was already too big
I know.
because I didn't. And now I'm like, okay, I don't know what happens in Act Two. If I'd finished the workbook, I would, but it would have been an exercise that I would have just departed from anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, it's more about knowing who the character is, how they have to change. Because what will happen is, as I write, I will come up with a really good way for that to happen.
Yeah.
That I wouldn't know until I got used to the character. And you spend all this time in the dialogue doctor talking about vehicles. Um, in some ways, that workbook is designed for people who have absorbed a lot of the
It
teaching
is. It is,
already.
yeah.
Otherwise, it would be a
Yeah,
totally
you're like,
different
what
kind
in
of
the
book.
hell is this thing? Yeah.
Right.
And we've gotten
So,
some of that from people in the dash. People that came in
right,
the dash that had no idea who we like. I was in
right.
my first office hours call. Somebody goes, "Who are you?" I was like, "Oh, welcome to the dash."
Yeah.
Not that I'm somebody famous, but just that like people who sign
Right.
up for stuff usually know who we are. Yeah.
So the idea, the idea that you're going to somehow narratively impart all these different things about vehicles, I worry pushes you perilously close to um, story grid territory where it's
Yeah.
not wrong.
It's just unwieldy.
It's
Yeah.
just unwieldy, which
Yeah.
is too bad. And I don't necessarily have an answer, but like at its most basic, you can say like acknowledge in the book like we are dealing with single vehicle thing here, and there's all sorts of other things to think about. And then if you want to do some other accompanying thing like different forms of narrative, whatever. But
Yeah. We've
um,
talked about doing like multiple workbooks
mhm,
and like, oh, this is the single vehicle workbook. This is
right.
the duo vehicle workbook for a romance. Like this is the if I
Yeah, there's
had
a good. I mean, Romancing the Beat does that great.
yeah, yeah. If I had my perfect world and an endless war chest of resources, I would create a program that asked you a series of about 10 questions and
Yes,
then customized your book for you.
yes. I was just
Customized
going
your
to say
workbook.
it's more like because it's more like a map than a narrative. That's
Yeah.
the issue. Because if you're trying to provide somebody with a narrative, like you're getting ready to write your novel, do this, 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 this.
Mm-mm.
You can't do that and explain all the
Yeah.
different types of vehicles at the same time.
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's what I really want is a computer program that's like, how many vehicles do you have?
right.
Are they all equal? If they're not equal, what's going on? And if you say like I have 4 vehicles, then there should be a page in there that are like, what are the world events that are bringing all these vehicles together? Like, let's
Yeah.
create the timeline they all operate around.
Or there should just be a big pop up that says "Don't."
Don't stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
I mean, it's perfectly legitimate to say like this is guide is for single vehicle narratives because that's how you should write your first book.
Yeah, but like I love Beartown, and it's got 6 vehicles, 7
Was that his
vehicles.
first book?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. But it's great. Like, and I like to write that. Like, I love anxious people. Like, I'd love to write a Bachman anxious people. It's got like 5 vehicles
Yeah.
in it.
But
But yeah,
yeah, I I I also love that kind of literature.
mhm.
Uh, but it's written by experts.
Yeah, it's true. It's written by he.
And
He has his Pulitzer.
no, I'm just concerned with helping people finish. And one of
Yeah,
the one of the major things that keeps people from finishing is that they make it too complicated.
yeah,
Uh, or they have all these vehicle characters in there because it actually makes them it makes it easier for them to tell the story.
Yeah.
They think it's going to be easier because
It's yeah,
they're
but they
trying to
actually it actually gets way
yeah,
harder.
it gets way
Yeah.
harder.
But and so but if I could design that kind of program that would then vanity print your book and send it to you, that's what I would want.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I don't have that kind of war chest right now. So, all right,
Yeah, you need an
questions
app.
for each other. Yeah, I need an app. I need an app that builds it.
Yeah,
That
which
all of this stuff comes down to I need an app. Like I'm writing the character voice encyclopedia, and I'm like, this is an unwieldy monster. We should just have an app. Um, okay, questions we bring for each other.
mine was mine. Though I did mine already. It
Oh,
was time
perfect.
management.
Oh, nice, good. Um, my question for you, you're not gonna like it. Uh, because neither of us are sales experts, but you do watch beginning of this year, everybody was panicked. Markets are going to be flooded by AI books. And this is the death of literature. It's always the death of literature. What do you think after we've come through a year? I'd love to know your thoughts on like what have you seen materialize and what you haven't. Knowing that you and I are both just people that are in the market, not necessarily experts. I'm just curious about your observations.
What if somebody has already written the first great AI novel and we just don't know it because they didn't say that it was?
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody won a European photography contest with the AI
Did they really?
thing, yeah, and then
That's
was like,
hysterical.
haha. Um, and
Suckers.
it was really nice. Um, I think there's a whole bunch of false narratives around AI, and I think the true narrative is we are 5 years away.
Mm,
So stop worrying about it. I think the people who are worrying about it that's going to take over the industry may be right, but we're not there yet. And the people who are excited about it because it's going to write their books for them are also deluded because it's just not there yet. And you only have to be in one of these groups on Facebook for a little bit to realize how much time people are investing. You were talking about trying to make a chat bot the other day and it fell apart. There's 5,000 of you on Facebook saying, and then I closed my browser and everything I had done disappeared.
oh man.
And then, and I just think they're spending hours. Like, do I want an AI generated series Bible for my 6 books? I would love it. I
Yeah.
would love it because I love to bring characters back. I love
Yeah.
to do things. I love to, and it's like I have to keep going back and being like, oh, what did I call that company and
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I would love it. But if I spend 30 hours trying to figure out how to get Chat GPT to do it for me, I'm just wasting my time. And the truth is, 90% of the time, it is giving you a generic answer and pretending it's a specific answer.
It was
That's my
funny.
experience with it.
Yeah, I was trying to build a dialogue Dr. GPT is what they're calling the little chat bots. I was trying to build a
Yeah.
dialogue Dr. GPT just to see if I could do it. Mostly because part of my job to like I was doing it a couple nights ago because I was bored. But I didn't want to do the work I was supposed to be doing. And so I was like, I'm going to do this instead. And then I was playing with it again today because we're in a video shoot and my job is literally to watch the chat for what the subject matter experts say and answer them. As I'm just sitting there waiting for them to talk, I was like, all right, I got some free brain space here. So I gave it part of my book and it starts to like, and then I'm asking it questions to see what it's retained. And it's like you're saying, it's like 50% me and 50% generic. And part of me is like, is the 50% me just generic? I'm not sure. So then I told
it's
it,
it's like astrology, right?
yeah,
Like, am I just seeing that from this what I want to think I'm
yeah.
seeing?
And then I told it, I was like, you have to use my terminology if you're going to represent my brand. So it starts using the phrase dialogue daisy everywhere, but it clearly doesn't know what it means. So it's just like throwing it in, just throwing it in. And I'm like, okay, I taught you, quote unquote, what this means when I gave you that chapter. I clearly did explain what it is. And like you clearly didn't get it.
You
So
know,
it's like that's when I turned it off again. I
right.
was like, this is a great idea, and I'm sure if I spent enough time with it, I can get it to work better. But I am fighting against the GPT corpus of knowledge that it has. And then
Mhm.
part of me is like, GPT already has its own writing coach in there. You can click on a GPT that is a writing coach. And part of me is like, what are my chances of actually, when this becomes an app market, which is what they're talking about, what are
Right.
my chances of actually being seen in it?
Oh, you'll be seen. It's just be you'll be absorbed into the org, and
Yeah.
you won't get any. They'll use all your ideas, but the more we talk about it, the more it reminds me of coding. You can and it reminds me of like when I was in sixth grade and we had computers where you could make a little number or a little figure
Yeah.
move across the screen. It would take you like 8 hours
Yeah.
to do, and you'd be so excited. But then you thought, then you pick up a Pac-Man game and you just move the
Yeah.
joystick and the thing moves across the screen because somebody else has done all the
Yeah.
coding.
Somebody
And
else has done all the work.
we're in this in between period where all the coding's not done yet,
Yeah.
and people are trying to do it themselves, and it's labor intensive. You don't get the answer that you want, and if you just hang on, if it's something that you want, it's gonna what
Yeah.
it can do a year from now is going to be
It's going to be
totally
so different.
different than from what it can do now,
Yeah. And
and
I
you're going to have
was
spent weeks and weeks and weeks of your life trying to get it
trying to get to work.
to
And I
work.
was like, this is a fun thing for me personally. Like I actually am probably going to I have a friend who's a nonfiction author, and what he's doing is taking his nonfiction books and he's for just for his own purposes. He's putting a chapter in and he's like, give me a picture that represents this chapter. It's just a
Oh,
fun
that's the new
exercise.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the new four. I haven't played with the new one yet because I
Yeah.
let my subscription lapse because I wasn't using it
Yeah. And
anymore.
it's fun. And you can tell, like, oh, that's a GPT picture. Like I can
Right.
tell. And but it's it's a good time, and he's like, that's an interesting take on my chapter, and like you can tell that it's at least picking up some words. Oh, it's not a generic thing. It's like clearly it read his chapter and got some of the concepts and was like, this is a representation of these things. Yeah, so I'm very strongly considering rewriting my first series for healthy reasons, not for unhealthy ones, and I am I might play with that. Like I might put my series in to get a Bible out of it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm terrible with names and places and like things that would
But from what
apply.
I understand, it's not very good at it yet.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean, I haven't seen that it's good at it yet, but
I used it when I was editing a book to each chapter have it list the characters and stuff, but it would also list the characters that other people talked about, right?
well, it
So
doesn't know. Yeah.
yeah, it and um and so it's tricky that way. Um, one of the things that I would like it to do, which I think you experimented with and it failed, which was screenplays.
Yeah, it was pretty good with. It didn't fail. It can't give you the formatting. And it can't
Why the hell not?
because it's just not designed that way.
Yeah.
Like, it probably could. Like I'm sure there's a way you could build it to do that, but there's no spacing in it. It's not like a Word document. It's not
Mm-hmm.
giving you back like it's just a string of text.
Right.
But it was good at pulling the dialogue for me. I was like, hey, pull the screenplay out of this. It's pretty good at like pulling all the dialogue out. And then I'd just copy and paste it and like do the formatting myself. Um,
Yeah. Although I would assume, and I could be wrong because I've never tried to adapt, but I would assume that part of adapting is adding adding judiciously to the dialogue to explain the things that you had in prose.
yeah, I couldn't just take it and be like, oh, there's the screenplay.
Right.
It was
You can't just take the
literally,
prose out and be.
yeah, it was literally just pulling the dialogue out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
But that would
like,
be a start.
yeah, and that's what it was. It's like, oh, this saves me probably 45 minutes to an hour per chapter, where I would literally just be deleting prose
Mm-hmm.
and holding. So, but I did have to reread it and rewrite it. And like, because the dialogue's different without inner thoughts and prose and and a lot of times I found like it was an interesting exercise. I didn't end up finishing the screenplay. It was an interesting exercise in like the difference between a screenplay and a novel.
Mhm.
And understanding like because originally it's like, oh man, I gotta cut my first 6 chapters. But then I took a step back and I was like, I don't. If I was making a movie, I'd cut them. But this isn't a movie. And they're easy to read and they're fun and they move through and it's fine. Like they're good opening chapters. They're not action packed thriller chapters, but that's not
Yeah.
what the book is. Like so, yeah.
And my series is in first person, which is a lot of the fun of it for me
Hmm.
is the sort of fun inner thoughts. And voiceovers don't generally end up as successful in screenplays. So you've got to find a way to you've got to find a way to show the character that you were showing with inner dialogue
Yeah.
through outer dialogue, which means probably rewriting or adding more scenes,
Yeah.
perhaps. I'm not sure.
It is interesting. I did just watch Killer by David Fincher. It's the new David Fincher movie on Netflix. And
Oh, that's him. I didn't realize that
yeah,
was him.
it is heavy inner monologue.
Hmm.
It is heavy like voiceover.
Yeah.
I didn't list it as something I liked or didn't like because I don't know. It's kind of like, yeah, this is okay.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting because it's an unreliable narrator. But you don't know that. It's not like Fight Club where you're like, oh, this is clearly an unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm.
About halfway through, I was like, oh, you're full of shit. But you have to get about halfway through the movie before you're like, oh, you're talking in all these ways that are literally nonsense. Like it's
Yeah.
not, yeah, your job isn't hard. You shoot people. Like that's like,
Yeah. Dune was on Netflix, and I scrolled through because I hadn't scrolled in a while, and I was like, oh my god, there's so many things I either haven't seen that want to see, or there's stuff from a long that I saw 20 years ago
yeah.
that would be great to watch again, and I immediately turned it off because like I don't have time for that.
You're like, I don't have time to do that. Yeah. Oh, all right, man. Well, anything else we want to talk about? I think we covered everything.
Yeah, no, this
Did
was
I leave
great.
anything out? Okay. Nice. All right. I'm going to hit stop and we can talk a little bit more.
All right.